infrared analysis of the infrared tape that was taken from a chopper. It was probably a news chopper. And he was doing an analysis for Dan Burton. And next thing I know, I heard he had said that, yeah, we got him. We can see a machine gun shooting, and we can see a tank exhaust. There was a tank behind the building and a machine gun back there shooting into that building. Well, Carlos Gugliotta's body was found 3 weeks decomposed in his Laurel, Maryland apartment. And the investigation, that was the end of it. That was the end of the investigation. That's what happened at Waco. Let's talk about what happened was they called in the UN forces of Task Force 6 from Fort Hood, Texas, and they burned the place down. They were PFP troops. We talked about PFP troops, and they were here. They've been here. We've had foreign cops in this country since 1988. Down in Atlanta, Georgia, the Red Dog Strike Force were foreigners. This was under Ronald Reagan, and of course then George Bush was running the shadow government then, George Bush Sr. They were down there. They came in, burned the place down. Americans will not burn up kids. There were 17 children in that building. Americans will not burn up kids. At least I hope not. I mean, most American soldiers will not burn up American kids. And like the FBI agent said, we were backed off on the 49th day, and somebody came in on the 51st day, and they burned that place down. What else is going on? Remember, that's domestic policy. Okay, I think it was the 17th of July of 95 that TWA crashed, TWA 800 crashed. It was outbound to Paris from JFK. And by the way, there were, between 93 and 2001, there were 4 wide-body jets crash after taking off from JFK. TWA 800 crashed. Swiss Air crashed off Nova Scotia. Egypt Air crashed. And then on the 12th day of November of 2001, TWA American 837 crashed in Far Rockaway. I know the reason some of those planes crashed, but remember that was domestic policy. TWA 800, according to the Miami Herald, there were 2 agents on there retired, 2 state troopers who had been Clinton's bodyguards in Arkansas, and they were going to Paris to interview with the Le Monde magazine, L-E-M-O-N-D-E, Le Monde magazine, means the world, and they were going to tell what went on in Arkansas. They tried to tell us that the plane, the main fuel tank exploded. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. JP5 jet fuel is kerosene, and kerosene will not explode. Now, you saw a big fireball at the towers, but you notice if you get the video, watch the video in plain sight, which is INPLANESITE from powerhour.com, powerhour.com, or if you watch the other video, which is loose change, you can see there was a flash as the plane touched the building. There was a special flash. There was an incendiary flash which made sure that the gasoline and the kerosene actually would catch on fire. Kerosene will not explode. You can take a 55-gallon drum, cut the top off of it, put it full of kerosene, put it half full of kerosene with fumes in the top. You can throw a match in there, and sometimes the match will go out. The match will be put out by the kerosene. So something made that kerosene really flame and fireball, okay? But kerosene of its own natural self will not explode. It'll burn furiously if it gets heated up, but it will not explode. So there was no, and General Ben Parton said the same thing, who testified at Oklahoma grand jury. We'll talk about that later maybe. He said kerosene will not explode. There's no way the main tank exploded. First of all, I've got very close friends who fly 747s, and the tanks for transatlantic flight, they're full. They were full up. And the kerosene won't explode. What happened to that plane was It was cut in two by a continuous rod warhead missile fired from a black helicopter. The black helicopter, which was seen by Air Force pilots, and the missile was also seen by Linda Cuppett. She took a picture of it, she was on one of the Today or Good Morning America. She had a picture of it, the missile streaking towards the plane. It was on national TV. Next day she got a phone, on the door, and they came and took the picture away from her. A continuous rod warhead missile was invented by the United States in about 1960. It was made as follows. You have 18 inches of half-inch steel, and you have a hole about enough of them to make a hula hoop. You weld them together in about a 10-foot hoop with malleable steel, and then you fold them together and put them in a package, and you put C4 in the middle. You put C4 behind the package so it goes forward, and at the same time it'll explode and go outward. The hula hoop goes outward, and it cuts through the airplane. If you come in from the side of the plane, alongside it cuts the fuselage in half. If it comes in straight in, it cuts the wing off. This, and I got into all this in General Pardon, it's called a K-kill, and it makes sure that if, for example, if a heat-seeking missile goes into an engine, it knocks out one engine. If they can put the fire out, it can keep on flying. Well, 3 engines. So this thing was designed to cut the engine, the wing off, or cut the fuselage in half. Well, and it also has a reacquisition where it goes, if it goes by you, it goes into reacquisition mode, cheat, comes back looking for you, okay? And the only defense, if the pilot sees it go by, the only defense he's got is to dive, get away from that thing, dive straight down as fast as he can to get away from it. Well, that thing is what we call a fire and forget smart missile. It doesn't track the engine heat like a shoulder-fired Stinger does. It goes with a computer key and logic, and it presupposes the position of the airplane, and it runs up along. It runs ahead of the plane and meets the airplane at a certain point. Cuts the flight path down considerably. When that thing gets 60 feet away, the radar proximity fuse launches the missile at 60 feet. It goes straight towards the plane and at 6,000 feet per second, and the hula hoop goes out and whacks through the fuselage, which is what happened. And I talked to a guy many years later who was on the investigating team. He says a couple of those people had really blunt force trauma on something that hit them really bad, cut them up. Well, that's when the rods came through the fuselage and hit them in the first class section. The rest of them just hit the water and kafoom, you know. But some of them have been cut up pretty badly. Captain Stacy, who was TWA's assistant chief pilot, went out there and he found a piece of seat cushion that had some kind of fuel on it. He had to analyze, and it was referred to as exotic missile fuel. Well, they actually arrested Casey and said he had stole government property. Well, he hadn't really. That was TWA property, and he was a TWA employee. Whatever happened to him, I don't know. But he was a brave fella. And so the reason the chopper was not seen on the radar was because it had a spoofer transponder, and it spoofed the civil radar. They could spoof the civil radar, so they couldn't be seen. And they took out 230 people. I happen to know about the flight engineer of the Boeing 747, 100, 200, and 300 have three crew members, three flight crew members. And the flight engineer, it was his first overseas trip, his first non-supervised. He'd been in training, and it was his first trip overseas, and he bought the farm. Joe McDade, the congressman from Pennsylvania, Montours, Pennsylvania specifically, he had 21 people on that plane from his district. 21 school students from his district died on that plane. And I drove to Montours, and I passed out a flyer all about that. Joe McDade didn't do a thing about it. Joe McDade retired and got out of Dodge City. These guys that are up there, they know what's going on. And I asked my congressman, what you going to do? He said, I can't do nothing. Tom Bliley told me, and a Marine captain retired, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't do anything about it.